Without further ado, I think we can get started. Is one of you want to start?
Yeah. So, like Rich said, just wanted to go over sort of where we were at the start of Epoch 7 and sort of what's been done so that we have a good picture of where we need to be going in Epoch 8. The start of this epoch, we had IP27 for the Spider Illuvial. Um, this was sort of a proposal that got pushed back and was just sort of being left stagnant. So, one of the first ones to come up. Um, Yeah, but in addition to being sort of removing a blocker for the spider alluvial, it also raised an interesting point with regards to something that uh, we felt could be accomplished under GovV2, just basically setting up a procedure in conjunction with the team for sort of how these kinds of proposals should be handled in the future. So our first proposal. Second proposal is IAP was the withdrawal of sushi liquidity. So this was withdrawing and selling Ethereum portion of DAO's sushi swap liquidity. And this was sort of as part of our risk management strategy, just to ensure that we're stable on runway going. Next proposal after that was ICCP2 was a proposal to reduce council pay by 25%. So the council created and proposed a pay restructuring and reduction, but large part of the community felt that the proposal was a bit too complicated in terms of deferred payment and things of that nature. Um, so this was sort of a community modification of our original proposal that was just much simpler, and it was just a pay reduction. So that was the third proposal.
Yeah, for some reason, my alternate proposal just to not pay Scoriax didn't go through, but we settled on just equal share for the rest of the council.
Yeah, I can pass this off to one of you guys if you want to go over a couple more.
No, I think you're doing great, Victor. Just wanted to add a little bit of humor there.
It's fair enough. I actually will pass this off. It's been super smoky, so
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, I can keep going if you want.
go for it, Scoriax.
So we're on mobile, so to like switch pages and things like that. Okay, so after that we had the proposal ICCP3 to define vault revenue and distributions and create a framework for fixed and variable cost products. Basically, we already had RevDiz kind of written into the white paper and things like that, but a lot of people felt like it wasn't clear enough. And as we started adding things like merch and things coming in the future, then it just didn't make sense anymore. So we basically just redefined the structure and how it works. And I think they came up pretty well, and it's going to see a bit more use as we get into things like that for sure. So the next one was the safety pool. Now, IOP29 and ICCP4, the safety pool and devoting Illuvitar's revenue to the safety pool. This was something the community had actually advocated for very, very early on, and they'd been talking about it for quite a long time. So it's a very easy win to make sure that what they were after, we not went along with, but we definitely took it into consideration, and we went and we started drafting these proposals, and they went through quite a few rounds of discussion from memory, but we got to a place that was really made a lot of sense and was great as part of our overall risk management strategy, as Blichter talked about before. Next, we went into IIP30 for the proposal of sale of Illuvitars. And basically, I think this was just defining some of the further details on Illuvitars, how the overall sale was going to work. Alpha Illuvitars and things like that took a lot of the limelight for that one, I believe. And then we went through and made sure that we had a good balance of how alpha pricing and everything went through together. I think we came through pretty successful in the end with the way the Illuvitar sale went through, and especially into its later phases of its life. I think the original proposal had regular discs at about 40 USD. And we can see now that that probably would not have worked very well in the long term, at least. And people are loving this low price point. People are able to buy thousands and thousands of discs, which is really exciting for a lot of the community. So I think that went quite well. IIP 31 was cancel Suzu Illuvitar battle. I think many of us already know what that one was about. Kieran was suggesting having a battle with Suzu in Illuvitars, and the community very quickly said that that was a bad idea. So if anyone wants to continue on for me here, got a cough.
Yeah, I can jump in here, Skoriak. So, governance V2 was our next topic up with IIP 32. This actually was, I think, one of our very first communications to the community. Many of you remember we actually dropped this right around the Christmas and New Year timeline in December of last year, and we ended up going through months and months of feedback and revisions from the community. But at the end of the day, the general structure is relatively unchanged, I would say, from from the first vision, with just a good bit of improvements, some other qualification discussions. We had topics around potential removal for council members that were incorporated. We had some adjustments to, I think, the makeup of each of the sub councils in terms of team versus community members that went back and forth a good bit. Some discussions about compensation. So there's a really enormous adjustment here that, as I think everyone in the audience knows, going forward into the next epoch will be especially critical as we're setting up then each of these sub councils and the working methodology between the community, between each of the sub councils and the main council and the team. And so I think this is going to be really a crucial timing in the project's life to be able to ensure we have sustainability in place. But that was all made possible by IIP 32. Obviously, following up on that, we had to kick off the process. So ICCP 5 was simply the date setting for the start of the nomination and voting process for GovV2. And then the last couple, we had our Illuvitar and land royalties ICCP to really clarify and tweak, I think, the proposal for the safety pool that we had in place that Skorax mentioned. And the funding of the safety pool then was increased a decent bit as a result of that. And then the weighted voting for this past election, which based on all of the feedback from community members, was very positively received. We had a lot of great candidates running, and I know many of you, including myself, took opportunity to avail yourself of the ability to vote for multiple candidates for each sub-council, and do that sort of weighted allocation based on your staked ILV. So those were the core changes, IIPs, ICCPs that went through this epoch. Maybe I'll turn it over to the rest of the council if anyone wants to share just general thoughts and sentiments, and I've got a few I'll come back to afterwards.
I'll just say it was a huge credit to the community. Like a lot of these, there was a lot of work behind this for the council and other folks involved. It really wouldn't have been this successful in Epoch if it wasn't for the engagement and feedback from the community. And we can look up and down the list of things that we did, and it really was driven by feedback, particularly governance V2 and the end state of where that got. And I think all of us will always remember where we were for the Illuvitar's proposal and the initial proposal, and rapid multiple hours and days of meetings, turn that around very quickly and get it to the state that it is today. And so I just want to give a huge shout out to this community in the current market economic climate, that to be this involved. Really, really appreciate it.
I'll also say I don't think I heard you guys mention it, but one of the things I thought you guys did really well was when the whole USDC situation was going on as well. Like, you guys were on top of it and quick to react, and the community didn't necessarily see all that because it was happening in council chats, but they were very on top of it. So was Danny and Kieran. But it was nice to see how proactive these guys have been the entire epoch, for sure. I've been a part of a few councils, and this is probably one of our strongest, for sure. appreciate all you guys have done. Flichter, Scoriox? Any
Really,
thoughts?
I'd just be echoing the sentiment of Diraji, where the community really stepped up as well, and at the end of the day, to a certain extent, we're really just like I like to think of us kind of like a magnifying glass of the community. Well, in Gov V1 at least, where we take all the community's thoughts and feelings, and we do a lot of our own work as well, but we focus it in on one point, help prioritize it, distribute it, and then create all the proposals and vote on them and things like that. And in a lot of cases, the community does a lot of the voting, does a lot of the building of the proposals as well. And it's all a big team effort. And I'm happy that we're able to serve the community in the ways that they needed to get all this done and steer the direction of the council in the way that it needs to be.
Yeah, not too much to add. I'm extremely excited for this coming epoch. I think there's a lot of opportunity for our incoming council members to do a lot of good. I'm also extremely excited to have additional team members sitting on each of the sub councils and sort of providing their input. I think that's going to be a hugely important part of the process. So switching over to that structure is, yeah, I've got a lot of optimism for this coming epoch.
Yeah, I was actually going to pitch that question to you guys next. What were you guys looking forward to most, headed into? I mean, I know, Diraji, I think, is the only one that's not on a council now, and all three of you are on separate councils. So what are you looking forward to most, Annie, Scoriox? Or even Diraji, too. You can give your thoughts,
Hey, you got rid of the dead weight here.
No, not at all.
I think I'll kick it off. I think what I'm most looking forward to is definitely the breadth of the new councils are going to have. For example, every of the sub councils is speaking to a different member of the team, and not only that, that they're all communicating with each other as well. So they're all managing to communicate with different areas of Illuvium labs and being able to get that information effectively, efficiently, and quickly, and then being able to use that information to create their own systems, their own plans, and their own ideas, and put that forward to not just the community but to each other. I think the ability to talk, to be so much more connected with the team is what I'm looking forward to the most by far. Outside of that, I'm really interested to see how the movement of the proposals is going to go and how interesting that's going to be. For example, it starts with community and then it goes through to one of the other sub councils and it goes to the IMC and so on. I don't know quite how they're going to go. I think it's going to be a really effective system. Whether it moves slowly is kind of my question, but I think it's going to be really interesting and really good. And it's definitely going to be more directed and more focused, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, so I think for me, the fact that this epoch will have a lot more leverage to continue to push things forward. And what I mean by that is the number of individuals that are able to be much more active in contributing hasn't changed because everyone in the community has been instrumental in putting forward IAPs and ICCPs this current epoch. That said, um, having already pre-set up structures where these smaller teams can work together on defined topics and tasks where they may have specific critical skills and competencies, that element of specialization, I think, is what's going to add to the value during this epoch. And so I'm really excited to see what more than a dozen candidates that have now become the nominees for this epoch are going to be able to put together, because as strong as I think this council was, at the end of the day, you're still limited by 5 people, and their capacity, their ideas, their ability to synthesize topics from the community and from their own knowledge. Having just a larger group of individuals, as long as the work is well structured, I think just lends itself to being even more effective in the long run. And so I'm excited to see how that plays out. Obviously, a big question and challenge is those of us that will be running one of these sub councils for the next epoch. We're going to have to figure out how to work both across the lines with our fellow council members and the other sub councils and with the main council, and also in some interesting ways with the community and how that's going to work. So I think it's what I'm most excited about, and also is going to require quite a bit of focus to make sure that we have those efficient structures in place.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I'm extremely excited to see some of the things that the different sub-councils think up, because I think a large focus of this coming epoch should be preparation. Just in general, we'll have a game launched soon, and we just need to set ourselves up with systems that prepare us for when the games go live. So I hope that I'm sure the other sub-councils are thinking about this, but this is also something that would be fantastic to get some ideation from the community with regards to. Um, Sort of thinking on what sort of systems are going to scale to a large number of players and a large number of engaged parties. So I'm really excited to both propose some of those things, but also just to see what else gets thought up. So
Yeah, I'll echo that and say just remember why you're here, both to the community and to the new council members. That right now there's not a product yet aside from Illuvatars, but the main game isn't there. It's about driving clarity and focus to deliver epic Web3 gaming. And so my advice is accelerate and enable, don't get in the way. And this is the time to build the structure for the future and really flesh out best in class decentralized governance. So my call is hear the community, empower the team. That's why we're here.
Well said. Well said. Yeah, I'm definitely. I already like to see. I can already tell. These sub councils are already kind of getting to work all on their own, making meetings and getting together and talking already. So that's good to see. Definitely lots of proactivity going on. And yeah, we'll have you guys sorted out this week ahead so you guys can get voted in your new IMC members. And looking forward to everyone getting to work and seeing what ideas they can come up with for sure. Annie, did you have something?
Yeah. I think, Rich, while we're waiting, so I'll just note if anyone does have questions or feedback, we'd love for you to either share it in the chat on the side or raise your hand, and we can bring you up to ask or share as you like. Just a couple other final thoughts from my side for this epoch. One of the elements that I think was really critical from the community's perspective going in was the focus on more transparency and communication. And so I think we referenced it a number of times in council chambers feedback and in town halls and so on. We really made it a focus this epoch to be out within the community very regularly, whether it was through town halls like this, or it was in AMAs or in interviews with some of our content creators, or whether it's in office hours or just being in Discord, in chatter and voice. And so, I think making sure that that continues is going to be important for the future. From my perspective, we haven't really heard too much negative feedback about that since the start of this epoch. So, it feels to me like we hit basically the right amount of communication and back and forth. And obviously, I think the number of ideas, I didn't actually go back and count, but we're well over 50 ideas that have come up during this epoch from various community members. Of course, a number of those became IAPs that were voted on at some point. And so that, that regular listening to what are the topics that are of interest and concern to the community has to stay a hallmark of our approach, right? This is a critical component. It's also what gives our governance structure as a DAO its strength, is that we can take that feedback, and when the community is sharing it in a constructive way, we can then build it into the products and our approach in ways that Web 2 projects just can't. So thank you all for that feedback and support there. And then I think we've got some key topics to carry over to next epoch, but really pleased with how far we were able to come this last 6 months.
Definitely. Ricky Tan had a question, and then I'll bring Tallulah up in just a second. But my personal favorite highlight from the epoch was governance V2 vote getting done and passed, and everyone happy with it in its general area. I mean, I'm sure, like I mentioned to some other people, like governments have been doing this stuff for a long time, and I still don't think they have it right. So I don't expect us to get it right the second time around. But I think it's a much better place than it was, and I'm interested to see how it develops, over this epoch even. But that's my personal favorite highlight.
I'll build on that and say, like, my favorite thing was really the private conversations with this group on stage right now, just incredibly engaged. But if I have to pick one moment, it was we sent GovV2 out for external feedback. It's like, hey, build on this. What did we screw up? We've been working on this for months. And what we heard back was this really is best in class. Nobody else has built anything like what we have. And so I think that was just my moment of all that hard work was validated.
Yeah, definitely a nice feeling once that came back pretty good.
Yeah, I think my favorite was not so much an event, but we put a lot of time this epoch into setting up sort of our processes and framework and sort of making them a bit more robust. Um, and in doing so, we managed to make ourselves, I think, a lot more effective. And just dealing um, with this council, the people on this council, was absolutely a privilege. There's not that many times. I feel there's not that many times where you get to engage with people who both care and are incredibly intelligent, and are all working towards the same goal. So for me, that's been a highlight just the entire epoch. But yeah, particularly just working on sort of upgrading how we operated.
Annie, Scoriox?
I can go then. My personal favorite was probably all of the discussion internally, mostly internally regarding the Illuvitar sale, the pricing, the running all the numbers for that, alpha discs, all the rest of it. I really enjoyed the discussions we had inside the council as well as with the community and things like that. And I think I don't know, I felt really at home going through those sorts of topics and trying to figure out what works best, not just for the community, for investors, for NFT collectors, all the rest of it. Yeah, that's really where I feel at home. So those discussions were really interesting.
Yeah, so we had quite a number of for those in the Western Hemisphere, very late night discussions for hours on end for key topics. I think for me, it was actually the discussion right here at the end. You guys as a community got to see some of the back and forth in public with our reasoning for voting for or against the IAP. In this case, it was the one for the Illuvitar and land secondary sales royalties going into the safety pool. So, this for me was a perfect example of why a council of very diverse individuals is a good thing for a project like this. Because at the end of the day, the vote ended at a 3-2 positioning, but I really felt like over guys, it was probably 2 hours, 3 hours worth of discussion. That particular meeting, and over half of that time was just spent on this topic. We went back and forth a number of different times, and it wasn't that people were just locked in under their position. There was really a lot of exploration around pros and cons and different considerations and stakeholders, and what's the right thing to do for the DAO. And so it illustrated to me very well that even if you have different positions, when you have a functioning council like this that's very focused on making sure you find the right solution for everyone involved, um, at the end of the day, you're going to have different opinions, but you can still come to a good position that's well reasoned. And so I think even though in my case my position was not the one that prevailed, it still really reflected the value of those types of deep discussions. And that's for me why I think representative governance in the form of the DAO is always going to be better than pure democratic governance, because you can't engage in that level of discussion with 1,000 people at a time. It just doesn't work. So being able to really dig in proved its worth in that case.
Yeah, definitely did. Long meeting. I actually have another good question for you guys, but we'll bring Tallulah up first.
Hi.
Tallulah, how you doing?
Good, thanks. How are you?
Wonderful.
Awesome. First, I just want to say thank you to Flickr, Scoriox, and Animosis and Daraji for your time on the council. And I'm not sure if there were other members, but probably were. I think I missed a bit, so I won't say too much about what I missed because I'll catch up on that. But I guess my question is, sorry, I just totally forgot where I was going. Okay. Yeah, I was touching on something Annie said about being in the community more. I think that's really awesome. But you also said something about interviewing content creators, and I wonder what you all think about it not just being content creators, but also people in the community who've been there since the beginning, or very active members as well. And also, my other question is: a while ago, we were in a chat with Kieran, and he mentioned, "Where's all the females?" Because there's about 26%, according to analytics, females in Illuvium. And I'm wondering what your thoughts are on how that can be represented more and for the council going forward.
Yeah, so maybe I can hop into Lula. I appreciate that. In terms of the content creator point that I mentioned, I think it's both directions, right? That's critical in making sure that the governance structures are effective. So, firstly, where we had opportunities to either join other content creators that would get a chance to ask us questions. I can't remember everyone, and I apologize, but I think I had a chance to join with Najaf and Artemis and TSG and Scoriox and Vet all at some points during this epoch. And so having that opportunity to be out in front of the community and just kind of share my thoughts was, I hope, valuable for everyone to kind of see where I was approaching topics from, but also the reverse, where in my case I had a chance to have some of the office hours on YouTube. And then frankly, even though the numbers of live viewers were pretty small, we never were lacking for discussion points. And so getting that community feedback in terms of questions or topics or ideas, a lot of times those were elements and items that I was able to bring into the council discussions later on for whatever the point was, because of engagement from our community. And so I think that was really really a critical step for me being effective this epoch. And then to build on that with your second question, which is around how can we continue to ensure that we have more females joining. I think it comes down to a couple things. The first is recognition and support of those that are here. And so, I've been, I think, pretty vocal in, we have a number of really, really strong builders, content creators, community members, and team members that are female. And we have to give them opportunities to have those appropriate platforms. And then I think, as long as you're doing that, the rest of the community needs to then, look at the value they're bringing. And in that case, it's a question, vote for the people that are going to contribute the most. And so, I certainly voted for a number of women in our community, and I'm really pleased to see more continue to emerge over time. It feels to me like the numbers continuing to grow in the sector, at least within the gaming space of Web3. And so I'm excited. We're going to see even more, I think, as the number of genres that we see being built out continues to expand.
Yeah, So the first question was around whether or not the council could be interviewing community members. Was that the question?
Yeah.
Gotcha. So I think I'm the only council member from this epoch who didn't participate in an interview on YouTube. Primarily, my engagement's been just here in Discord. Um, I do think that there's a place for the council to be maybe doing some more outreach or setting up those sorts of interviews, but at the same time, I think it's important to play to uh, skill set as an individual, and conducting interviews or even just going on other people's interviews is not a particularly strong suit for me. So that's not sort of how I've chosen to contribute, if that makes sense. But I do think it is something that has value, and if there are people who are interested in that in this coming epoch, more power to them. Absolutely. With regards to the second point, I'm a I'm a big believer in quality of opportunity, and I don't think anybody's ever above evaluating whether they're actually creating equality of opportunity for all parties, particularly women, as you mentioned. And so, assessing whether we're creating an environment that's maybe discouraging women to run for council for some reason is absolutely valid. And then, like Annie said, beyond that, pure meritocracy. So, whoever the community decides to vote for, that's they want to be representing them.
I'll kind of take both of these at the same time. And to me, it's enabling and celebrating diversity of style. And I think you have some folks that are really willing to put themselves out there and debate and enjoy the anonymity of the internet. And there's others that aren't. And we need to create forums and venues where all those folks can be heard and enable them to be successful. I'll say I didn't do as much publicly, at least from a YouTube standpoint, this epoch, and was super busy behind the scenes. And I had a number of folks that reached out to me privately and just sent a message of like, "Hey, I want to know what you think about this," or "I have this idea and I'm afraid to post it in this chat because it's super heated." And just having a private conversation with that individual, enabling them to feel heard and get my perspective on it as well. And I'd say that's a big call to the future council. Just be available and understand that folks have different ways they want to communicate and put themselves out there. I think that's an area that we can continue to improve in as well as a community.
So I think I'll take the second one first. And with Blichter, I think inequality of opportunity is what's most important. But also just maintaining a respectful community is also really, really valuable, right? Just making sure everyone's following the community guidelines appropriately, being respectful to everyone should hopefully break down any barriers that might prevent any individual from speaking up. But I think an interesting takeaway as well is that, like Kieran mentioned last week or so, mentioned that he would have liked to see more individuals with certain expertise to be nominating themselves for the council and things like that. And the only point I'm going to derive from that is that GovV2, as it's currently structured, did a really good job of getting people to really put all of their information forward, all of their expertise and everything else that is related to it in front of the community to vote, but making sure that we continue to build on that and make that even easier for the voters in the community, because maybe they want someone really specific with a really specific set of skills, and giving them the opportunity to see that and visualize that is going to create the best opportunity, the best decision making for voting in different councils and things like that. As for the content creator side of things, I think that's a really good idea. I think even if this future community sub council could create systems maybe where they create standing appointments with people, for example, once a week on a specific time slot, they have like a standing council town hall and anyone can ask them questions and things like that. It opens up another medium of communication for the community to reach out to the council, and by splitting up into these sub councils, it makes it even easier for us to do that, I think. And I look forward to those sorts of systems with the community sub council.
Great. Thank you, everyone. That was amazing. Thanks for answering.
Okay, thanks, Tallulah. Cool. Well, I got a question because I think we have several new council members here. If you guys were to give some advice to these new sitting council members, what would it be? Just coming in.
I can start off. I think the big one is that expect for a lot more people to be critical of you, but more importantly, make sure that you stick to why you were elected in the first place. Okay, it's easy, and believe me, I've been susceptible to this, especially in my earlier days on this epoch. It's really easy to fall into the mass crowd and fall into the small minority of voices that are above the rest of them. But people elected you for a reason. You were honest about why you were going for council and why they should elect you and things like that. Stick to those guns as much as you can, because I assure you there's a large majority of the silent that did vote you in and voted you in for a reason. I think you should just make sure to stick to your guns as much as you can.
This is going to sound really quite short, but I would say just don't be afraid to take initiative. If there's something that needs to get done and you're aware it needs doing, just go do it. Whether that's drafting a proposal or helping organize your council or improving your communication, whether that's internally in the council or community or um, even with the team through your team representative, just take action on the things that you see that need improvement. If we have groups of people who are willing to take that initiative, I think we're going to have a fantastic epoch.
I'll say listen and keep learning. It's a super new space. Things are changing daily, and value the opinions and things that your other council members bring. Listen to the community and don't think you know everything, and be willing to change your position by hearing facts, represent where you're at, but definitely do it with an open mind.
So Diraji stole some of my thunder because I was gonna echo that point that you are going to probably come to every IIP or idea or discussion with a preconceived idea, and being an intellectually strong individual means that you can have a particular belief, but also be willing to explore that you might be wrong and that there's other ways, even if you're not necessarily wrong, that maybe your idea is not the only one or is not even the best one, and being able to you entertain both of those thoughts at the same time, and then really evaluate what is the best decision, the best approach for the entirety of the DAO is going to be the most essential part of the role. Another point that I think I was asked in some of the interviews, and I still think is the same, is being a part of the council is not the same thing as being a part of a group of 5 individuals who are each just requested to come in and vote on their particular position on a topic. And this gets back to some of what my fellow council members here mentioned in their advice, which is you need to, as a group, find out who has particular skill sets in different areas that can help make you most effective. Because in order to be a functioning unit, you can't have just 5 individuals that are all putting their own ideas on the table and then pulling a lever for yes or no. You have to actually be working together as a team in order to get the most out of the small group that you've got put together. So those would be my 2 core pieces of advice.
Well, I think that should be helpful to some. I echo a lot of what you guys said. I think that's one thing that you guys did really well together. And in Kieran included. And you guys being a team and having discussions and making sure that we try to have a unified front as council, or you guys had a unified front as council. But yeah, thank you guys for that. Is there any more questions out there? Otherwise, I think we can pretty much wrap it up. A little bit of a shorter one, but
I just wanted to add one thing, because I know there are a lot of incoming council members. listening right now, but do feel free to reach out to myself, and I'm sure the other council members as well. If you have questions about how things are structured, or you're just looking for feedback on how you can improve some process, we have spent a lot of time thinking about these things as we talk, and not all of the things that we've been doing are going to be right for everybody. But if you just want an ear to bounce an idea off or whatever it is, yeah, let's keep the dialogue open. So
Yeah, absolutely. Yep, and I'm included in that. Always feel free to reach out to me. We're all busy people, but I make sure to make time for anybody in council that needs help and whoever else. So yeah, just always feel free to ask for help, advice, feedback, whatever you need.
Yes, same here. I'm not retiring. I'm going council emeritus this time. So feel free to reach out.
My DMs are always open, as many of you already know. Yeah, I look forward to helping you out if you need it.
Yeah, I'll certainly echo that too. My DMs are open unless you're a scammer, in which case they're still open, but I'm not going to click on your link. The gaming subcouncil, I think, is the only one that doesn't have a returning alum from this epoch, and so certainly I don't think any of them are here in the audience I see right now. But if any of them catch this, we're also happy to join and talk through some of those administrative and operational details that we've come up with ideas as we prepared for this epoch. So, and then for the community, again, you have now, nearly 4 times the resources as you did previously. So put it to use, because we've got a lot to get done between now and when open beta goes live later on this year.
Good deal. All right. Well, with that, we'll wrap it up. Thank you, everyone, for coming and checking it out. This is recorded, and it will be posted up on Illuvium Plus YouTube a little bit later. I'll put out an announcement for that. But yeah, thank you guys for coming, and we'll go ahead and end it there.